Less than 5% of people will actually stick to their New Year's resolution, which means that 95% of them quit before reaching their goals. Now, we're just talking about New Year's resolutions, but what about the goals that people set themselves outside of those? That is to say that you're far more likely to quit than you are to reach your goals. And that's a major issue we need to address. Because the big problem is that people have the process all wrong. The core issue is that their expectations are messed up. And what happens is that they start engaging in the habit that can potentially lead them to their goals, just to realize that it's way harder than they had expected. They don't like it, they don't want to be here anymore, they just want to be doing something else. It feels wrong. And the problem arises when you feel that, and when it feels like your brain is against you, pushing you to quit. So what are you supposed to do when your brain teams up against you and you feel like quitting? Now, if you ever thought about quitting, this means that you're already engaging in a habit, which in itself means that you've started the process. And the first thing that you want to learn is to diagnose your desire to quit. And for that, you need to get really specific. You need to introspect because everyone feels like quitting. But the difference lies between the one who act on that thought and the ones who continue engaging regardless. Wanting to quit has nothing to do with quitting, and the distinction is crucial. You can think about quitting all you want. As long as you don't do it, you're still in the game. The most important thing is the separation between your thoughts and your identity. Wanting to quit doesn't make you a loser, doesn't make you a quitter, as long as you don't follow through on that decision. So you need to be first specific about why you want to quit. Clarify that reason. Be okay with exploring your quitting thoughts. This is going to help you because wanting to surrender is only the surface level. There is something hidden underneath it, an emotion, a feeling that your brain wants to avoid at all costs. Don't judge yourself because you want to quit. It won't help you in any way, shape, or form. That being said, there's one condition for observing your reason, and that is you cannot do it while you're directly engaging in the habit you're thinking about quitting. You cannot be objective and think clearly when you're in the heat of the moment. You have to distance yourself from the action and introspect with calm. For example, if you're just starting going to the gym, there will be many times throughout your first weeks, your first workouts, where you might feel like quitting. And it won't be possible for you to introspect and think clearly in between two sets. Wait until you're done. Wait until your mind returns to normal thinking. Then introspect and clarify your intentions. Simply put, don't quit on an impulse or you'll regret it. Because the thing with quitting is that it's personal. It's intrinsically linked to your past experiences, your emotions, your perception of self. And if the act of quitting looks the same for everyone, the reasons behind it are extremely different. Using the same example, I could quit going to the gym because I'm socially anxious, for example. Or maybe I'm just feeling overwhelmed by the environment. Or maybe it's a negative past experience. Like 2 years ago, I tried going once and someone stole my machine. I don't know. Maybe it's not even about the gym in itself. Maybe I've just never been exposed to doing hard things. Maybe I just generally lack confidence. All of that to say that you need to investigate your desire to quit. This is extremely important because it provides you with precious data about what you need to do next. And you cannot fix something you don't know the root cause. More than that, the closer you get to the problem, the more you're able to see the flaws. Now, I cannot possibly cover all the reasons that might push you to quit, and that's not even the goal. My goal is to equip you with the tools to understand and manage these quitting impulses on your own. That's why we need to understand biology of quitting, what happens in your brain that leads you to this decision. And if you've been watching videos on this channel, you're aware that many problems in your life are linked to your brain's tendency to save as much energy as possible, while quitting is no exception. So you probably already know about the transmitter dopamine, which plays a very important role in motivation. Dopamine is primarily, but not exclusively, released in your brain when you're on the road to a reward. The more dopamine is released, the more focus, attention, and energy you're able to channel towards the habit that you're engaging in. But if your brain judges that the reward isn't real or the effort is too big, dopamine really stops because your brain doesn't want to pursue this objective anymore. That's when you start to feel like quitting. You feel no enjoyment whatsoever in what you're currently doing. Now, biologically speaking, there's another chemical that is important for us today. It is cortisol, which is also called the hormone of stress. When you're in a stressful environment, your decision making is impacted by this stress. This is mainly due to the effect of cortisol and also just the accumulation of mental fatigue. You won't be able to think clearly, which is something you've probably experienced often. When a very stressful event arises, you don't remember things very well. You're confused, you can't seem to think clearly, you have a hard time focusing. The same goes for fatigue. After a day of work, your brain is pretty much fried. You can't even think about what you want to eat for dinner. And biologically speaking, all of these factors, they have a huge impact on how you perceive your reality, the quality of your thoughts, and your ability to produce and engage into a behavior. Moreover, when it comes to exerting significant effort towards a habit that you're not accustomed to, their influence is even greater. Simply put, you're much more likely to quit when your dopamine levels are low, cortisol levels are high, and the fatigue is accumulated or even kicking in. So if you're starting going to the gym after a stressful and exhausting day of work, you're biologically setting yourself up for failure. And what you need to take away from this is that first, your biological state influences your desire to quit, and that you need to be aware of its influence. It is not just you. There are other factors like biological and chemical things that are happening in your body that can push you to have these negative thoughts. Second, if you want to counteract that, you need to delay your decision to quit. If you feel like quitting, you need to be in a neutral state that allows for clear thinking. And you cannot possibly make a conscious decision with a disorganized and drained and overly stressed mind. So same rule, don't quit in the heat of the moment. Now we need to talk about early quitting, because 95% of the people that quit their New Year's resolutions, well, they fall in that category. This is early stage quitting, and you end up in this category if you quit after engaging in a new habit for less than a month. It's when you're surrendering because you lack. You lack focus, you lack attention, you lack confidence, you lack the skills. In fact, you're not even quitting the thing, you're avoiding the effort. Because at that point, you cannot possibly know for sure that this thing doesn't align with your long-term goals and that you need to move on to do something else. At this point, the task is demanding and challenging, and you haven't been engaging long enough to perceive yourself becoming good at it. You don't see the benefits and the results yet. At that point, it feels like it's just hard. You don't want to do it. You have no idea why you started in the first place. And that's exactly how it's supposed to be like. That's when your brain, because of the way it's wired, isn't giving you any positive feedback yet, because it can't. So the frustration builds up and creates friction. This friction puts a form of stress onto the body. And the key is the way you react to this tension, how you treat it physically and mentally, because after all, it's just a sensation. And in that scenario, what your brain will do is that it will calculate what's called the cost to benefit ratio. That's his own way of deciding if pursuing that endeavor is worth considering the physical and mental impact it has on you. And in the case of the gym, just to stick with it, your brain will go through something like this script. First, it will take a look at the costs, and it has no problem whatsoever doing that. Your brain will tell you, I experience physical burn in my muscles, cardiovascular stress, and adrenaline rush. I experience anxiety due to the high volume of people and the loud environment. And I'm spending a high quantity of energy that could be mandatory for survival purposes. And then it looks at the benefit. And here's where the problem lies. Because when starting, you're not seeing any substantial results yet, because you just haven't been engaging for long enough. So the benefits are just perceived benefits, but not real benefits. It's like, I'll get in shape at some point. I am going to lose the weight. I guess that this thing's going to work. It's the right thing to do. Nothing's for sure, and you don't have any idea if it's going to even work. And if you want to even the balance, you need to find real benefits for yourself. Benefits that you can sense directly during the activity or right after. And coaching my clients, I found 3 that might help you when starting when it comes to physical endeavors, for example. First, the sense of control that you get from training your body. Second, the pride that you get from completing a workout. And third, the physical sensation of mobilizing your body and use it at its full potential. Find the benefit that is most potent to you, and that will depend on your current situation, your personality, your goals, everything. But the cool thing is that one single benefit can actually outweigh all the costs if profound enough. And another very useful tool when you're in the heat of the moment, like during a workout, like for example, and that you want to quit, don't quit, just take a 5 minute break to assess your current mental state. Think about how you're processing the information when you're in that moment. What are your thoughts? You need to get over the smoke screen that giving up induces. I call this a mental reset. You just step away from everything for a minute. No phone, no distractions, nothing. You just stare at the white wall and you just unwind. By doing so, you'll be able to distance yourself from the accumulated frustration, leaving just enough space to appreciate your effort and hold on to your benefits. You can resolve early quitting with this ability, the ability to distance yourself, to just zoom out for a second, just enough to realize that the frustration and the unpleasant sensations are linked to your brain having just no point of reference. Once you understand that, you gain an insight. You don't want to quit the thing. You just need a 5 minute break every time that you feel overwhelmed, and that's going to greatly help you. Now we're going to talk about a different type of quitting. I call it emotional quitting. In this case, you've been engaging in the habit for a while. You've gone through the hard initial phase, and the problem isn't the ability to overcome beginner frustrations. The problem here is a general emotional overload that leads you to quit the activity. And I also think when it comes to emotional quitting, that in that case, you're way more likely to just never engage in that activity again. Unlike early quitting, where some people just will go on and off for a period of time, emotional quitting is usually permanent. It's the type of things that you get to see in movies, for example. It's the 12-year-old piano prodigy performing at a concert, and she makes a mistake and ends up ruining the whole performance. Then she proceeds to never touch a piano again because she felt ashamed and inadequate. That's a dramatic example, but it happens all the time with people, and it doesn't have to be so traumatic. But emotional quitting is linked with a deep and negative experience, usually motivated by shame, fear, rejections, deception, that kind of emotional category. The root cause is that negative experience ruins your self efficacy. It's the confidence that you have in your own capacity to produce a certain level of performance, which means that the negative emotion basically takes over your confidence. You start to rethink your competency, why you're engaging in this activity in the first place, and ultimately your own self image. In this scenario, the general self esteem and self image that you have will either be protectors or precipitating factors that aggravate the situation, as low self esteem will just diminish the emotional threshold necessary for you to quit. Simply put, if you have low self esteem and you encounter a negative experience, there are more chances that this situation is going to lead you to quit. The thing is, though, that negative experiences are inherent part of the process. The solution for that is you need to allow yourself a screwing up margin, meaning you leave yourself just enough space to miss, fail, slip without it being overly dramatic and leading to instant quitting. Expect to be shitty at things when you're starting and not letting that be tied to your self image. Also, you need to rethink the way you treat negative emotions. If you operate under emotional quitting, it means that you're treating negative emotions as absolutes. You resign yourself, accepting that this is the only possible outcome and there's no point in engaging back again. And by doing so, you transfer all the power onto the emotional itself by depleting yourself of it. This approach is shallow. It means that every potential negative situation has the power to derail you and destroy your goals and aspirations. The thing is that negative emotions don't have any immediate impact on the present. You're the one choosing to let past negative emotions influence your present actions. These are just emotional traces encoding in your brain. That's it. Now, the last type of quitting is called strategic quitting. Don't let the idea attract you too quickly. Most people will never make it to this type of quitting because it implies that you've been engaging in something for a long time. You went through the early quitting temptations and the negative experiences did not get the best of you. This type of quitting is to me the only one that's healthy and meaningful. In that case, you don't quit because it's hard. You're making a conscious decision to stop engaging after an objective evaluation of the situation. This is the only type of quitting that doesn't come with regrets. Quite the opposite. In fact, it comes with gratitude and pride. So, how do you know if quitting might actually be the right thing to do? Well, you look at your values and your long term vision. If this thing that you're currently engaging in isn't participating or reinforcing your values, or it just doesn't align with your long term vision, then maybe that's time to move on. And generally, this happens when you outgrow the thing. It might be a position, a job, a relationship, or a habit. Make the evaluation. Take your time and see if your mindset stays the same over a long enough period of time. There's a time in all things where you might be better off moving on to something else. And then when you reach that point, when you know exactly the cost and benefits, when you had enough time experiencing the whole spectrum of things, you can quit without any regrets because you know what to expect. And you know that's the best thing to do if you want to pursue your growth. This is the opposite of an impulse. It's a well thought out method. You're not quitting, you're deciding to cease your activity. It's very different because you could keep going if you wanted to. It's not a lack of anything, it's not a restriction, it's just a misalignment with your goal. But obviously, it comes also with the struggle. And here, the struggle is going to be associated with the being okay with your decision. And we aren't taught how to quit for good. 99% of the time, quitting is just associated with a negative action, whereas quitting is sometimes necessary. And when you've only learned early quitting or quitting because of a negative emotional outburst, you actually deprive yourself of the true beneficial power of stopping your engagement. Don't make the same mistake. Don't use quitting as an excuse to not stick to your promises. In any case, I hope this helps. Trust the process.